Now I want to talk about Emilia Perez, which has become the most controversial movie of the entire year. Because if you don't know, the story follows a cartel leader who gets the help of a lawyer to help her transition into a woman, and then she fakes her death to help protect herself and her family, but then she still wants to be involved in her family, so she comes back a couple years later and pretends like she's this long-lost aunt that nobody in the family knew. And look, this movie gets messy. It gets messy in terms of structure, it gets messy in terms of story, and on top of all of that messiness, it's a musical, and not really an English musical either. This is full-on, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure all of the songs in Spanish. If anything, maybe Selena Gomez sings a little bit in English, but for the most part, this is a full-on Spanish-speaking musical. Netflix put a lot of money into it. You could tell in terms of all of the filmmaking aspects, like everything from the cinematography, lighting, just the every musical sequence I thought looked great, and it's some of my favorite musical sequences of the year because we've gotten a good amount of musicals so far. And I went into this movie hearing a ton of mixed reviews about it. The people that love this movie love this movie. The people that hate this movie despise this movie. And I went to watch it because if I'm at a film festival, my main objective is to watch as many movies as possible. Clearly, with how long this video is and how many movies we talked about, I want to try and see everything. And I gotta say, I came out of that movie on definitely the positive side. Like, I didn't come out saying, oh my God, Emilia Perez is one of the best movies of the year. I wouldn't go that far, but I would be lying if I didn't think this movie was absolutely fascinating. And I do think there are criticisms that are worth criticizing the movie over, but at the same time, when we live in a world where there are so many movies that feel like they're just copy and paste from a random factory, and we're never getting anything that's too original. I mean, do we get more original than Emilia Perez? This thing is so wild in so many different aspects. It's a movie that stands out for so many different reasons, and I do think it's something that is hard to forget about. Most of the performances in here are pretty amazing. Zoe Saldana has always been great. I know we don't ever talk about her in terms of like best actresses working today, just because I feel like it's kind of easy to forget about her in the sense that she's always doing something like Guardians of the Galaxy or Avatar. She's always in makeup. She's always behind CGI. But when she cries in Avatar, you feel that through your entire body and soul. And in here, she won't make you cry or anything like that, but you will watch her on screen and be like, holy shit, this is one of the best living actresses of our time. It seems like for award season, they're putting her in the supporting category, which I felt weird about coming out of this movie. I know she's supposed to be in supporting and Karla is supposed to be in the best actress, and even coming out of the movie I was confused which would go in which. I was telling people like, yeah, I know it's called Emilia Perez, but it kind of starts off with Zoe Saldana being the lead, and then eventually I guess she would go in supporting, so I guess they're doing Saldana in supporting, and either way, she is my pick to win. She crushes every aspect of her role here, whether she's talking or singing. I really was more blown away with her than I thought I would be, and yeah, if she wins the Oscar, I'm gonna be really happy. And the craziest part is, she might not even be the best performance of the movie, because Karla Sofia Gascon is absolutely remarkable. It's the word I was looking for. This is one of my favorite performances of the year, for sure. Like, Mikey Madison is incredible. I probably would still give it to Mikey Madison, but if there is a world where this woman wins in an upset, I would be pretty happy, because she is also balancing so many more things within her character that not a lot of actors get the chance to even do, because when she first shows up on screen, she is portraying the pre-transition character, and when she is in that mode, I was like, holy shit, like, this is crazy. That part alone was already one of my favorite performances of the year, and then the character goes through the transition, and then we're seeing her life post-transition, and you're like, holy shit, she's just as good. And it's one of those performances that will stick with you as soon as the credits roll. Like, even though there are certain things about Emilia Perez that haven't aged as well for me over the past 2 months, her performance has remained one of my favorite things of the entire year. I think it works emotionally. I think when she's more threatening, she's also fantastic. I just think she gives one of the best performances of the year. I do think maybe I would still give it to Mikey, but I don't know. They're the two really holding out for me. And then among all of that, you have Selena Gomez, she's Selena Gomez in the movie. I don't know. I wasn't fully sold on her. Like, even the music stuff, you think someone that's a pop star would be able to really carry this a bit more. I think what I was afraid Ariana Grande would end up being for Wicked is what Selena Gomez ended up being for this movie, where Ariana Grande fit that character. She understood the assignment. Selena Gomez is just kind of there, and you're like, I am not buying into you at all. They probably did cast her to get more hype around the movie, to get the Selena Gomez fans interested in watching this on Netflix, but I just think when you see the other two performances and they're giving some of the best work of the decade so far, and then it cuts to Selena Gomez, you feel like you're watching two different movies. But even her musical sequence is completely striking. I think almost all of the sequences here in terms of the music really do work. There are definitely some that lyrically work a lot better than others. But even if a song isn't working lyrically, I think thematically it still looks incredible. Like, I think everyone that worked behind the camera on this movie killed it. And I was so musicaled out in this TIFF experience. There were already so many I sat through, and I was like, am I gonna have to sit through another musical? I like musicals every once in a while, but sometimes when you see like 3 or 4 or 5, it's a lot. But as soon as the first one started, I was like, holy shit, this is probably the most well choreographed musical sequence of TIFF. But even saying that out loud, Better Man has one that was flat out incredible. So I don't know where Emilia Perez ranks in terms of that, especially when you add in Wicked to the mix from this year. If you're a musical fan, you got a lot of options this year. But there are so many sequences in here I absolutely love, and I really do think if you are a musical fan, there's a lot to appreciate here. And like I said, we don't ever get too many mainstream musicals that aren't in English. And like I said, the movie is a mess, but I think there's a difference between a movie that doesn't realize it's a mess and a movie that is aware that it's a mess and it kind of just embraces it as being a mess. I think Emilia Perez definitely lands in the latter of that, especially when it comes from the director who has made some of the most critically acclaimed movies of all time at this point. I'm admittedly behind on his filmography, and I don't want to butcher his name. Jacques Audiard might have butchered it. I saw The Sisters Brothers, didn't like it. I've heard incredible things about A Prophet, like it's one of the best movies ever made, apparently. So I am behind on his work, but this doesn't strike me as a guy that doesn't really understand the movie he's making. I think he was fully aware of the mess that comes with making like this kind of story, not even in terms of like what the story's about, but in terms of there are so many different things happening, and yet he still finds a way to kind of piece it together. All those pieces don't necessarily land perfectly, but I do think he went for something very bold here, and I do appreciate that. And I think the movie gets messiest maybe towards the end. Like, I do like the actual ending of the movie, the last like 2 or 3 minutes, but I think the 15 to 20 minutes before that does feel like a little messy, a little, okay, can we start wrapping this up? Like, even though I enjoyed my time with Emilia Perez, it definitely felt pretty long by the end of it, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of ready to step out of this world now. Like, I think I've seen enough. I think that goes into, for whatever reason, there are some movies like this where I walk out and I really enjoyed that experience. I had a great time, but I don't really have a desire to revisit it. Emilia Perez is one of those 3.5-star movies where I really liked it. I really had a lot of fun with it. I really was affected by a good amount of it, but I just don't know if I would sit through it again. I would sit through certain parts of it again, no problem, but I do think it starts to feel a bit exhausting by the end of it. I can see why it would upset some trans people in the sense that they use the trans experience kind of like a plot device to help hide certain aspects of a character, and it almost makes it look like this trans person's supposed to hide, but it's also telling the story of a cartel leader, and since it is a cartel leader, they have to deal with certain things that a more regular living working class person wouldn't have to deal with. So that's one of the reasons I'm like, I understand why this would piss people off, but at the same time, I don't think the movie has any bad intentions behind it. I mean, they cast a trans woman as the lead, and that person has a lot to do with the formating of this character. I think, honestly, if you put this in the hands of a different director, it would feel a lot more insulting. And I'm not a trans person, so I can't really speak to that, but I do think maybe the film is getting a bit more critiqued than it deserves to be. I get where people are coming from, but I really think there are way more malicious movies out there, and I don't feel like Emilia Perez is one of them. This is a very specific trans story that they decide to tell, and I think people will talk about it a bit more positively a couple of years from now, and I'm excited to see every type of trans story that we can see over the next few decades or hundreds of years, however long movies exist. And maybe it's because we live in a world where, unfortunately, we don't have enough trans stories on film right now, but I get the criticism. I'm not one of those people criticizing it for that. I just think the movie gets a bit messy by the end of it. Like I said, it's weird. I really liked it. Don't feel like I have to watch it again though. Versus some movies, when I watch them at TIFF, I like them a bit less than this, but I would be more interested in giving them a rewatch to see if I like them more. So maybe this really is a 3 out of 5 compared to a 3.5. I don't know. I still really liked it though. Like, and that's the thing. There's a lot of really good things in this movie. So if you're interested in seeing it, it's on Netflix now. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, if this feels like a shorter review than usual, it's because this is a segment of a much larger video that I've put on the channel already, kind of reviewing my entire experience of the Toronto International Film Festival this year. I saw about 37 movies, which is absolutely crazy, and I talk about all of them in that video. Some of these are the biggest Oscar players of the year, some of them are the best horror movies of the year, whatever it is. We talk about a lot of movies in that video, so a link to that full video will be in the description here. But if you just want to see the shorter reviews that keep coming out over the next week or two, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of those reviews that drop. This is also all of my social media right here, so if you want to follow me on Letterboxd, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is, I check Letterboxd the most. I haven't been as active on this because I've been working on this video and so many other projects over the past month, but I love talking about movies on there. So if you want to keep up with what I'm watching, be sure to watch that. Also, shout out to Reed for being so patient with me and helping edit all these videos and getting all these exports out. So if you need help with any editing at all, be sure to hit him up. He will absolutely help your videos out a ton. Be sure to like these videos, whether it's this video, the Long Toronto video, they all help me out a ton. It helps more than you think. I know a lot of people ask for you to hit the like button, but it helps me pay Reed to help me keep editing these videos. So if you won't like it for me, like it for Reed. And be sure to comment down below. Have you seen this movie yet? If the film has come out, what did you think of it? If it hasn't come out yet, are you excited for it still? Did my opinion change? I mean, this outro is going on the end of all my videos. So with this specific movie, I don't know if I loved it or if I hated it, but you know what? At the end of the day, a day talking about movies is a good day. So I'd love to talk to you in the comment section down below. And that is it for me. So this is Chase. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks.